My ex-fiance's new girlfriend stole my wedding speech and used it as her own at her wedding. And if you think that sentence reads like a plot twist from a prestige drama where everyone has excellent lighting and poor judgment, welcome to the inside of my inbox, because I'm Sarah, 36, a freelance speechwriter and communications coach who helps terrified dads survive toast without crying into the crudité. And yes, the irony is a tall, cold drink I sip daily. My job is literally to give people words they can stand in, and somehow my own ended up walking down an aisle I was never invited to. I should start by saying I don't hate love. Love pays my rent. Love keeps me booked out for months from May to September. Love is what I've seen in the green room eyes of bridesmaids and the trembling hands of grooms, what I've underlined in napkin scribbles at 1 a.m. over coffee that tastes like ambition. I'm a practical romantic. I believe in vowels and vows. I also believe in NDAs, version control, and backing up your heart in at least 2 places the moment you let it out of your chest. My almost wedding was 3 summers ago. His name was Caleb, the kind of handsome that's obvious until you notice the bad lighting inside it. We had the venue, the band, the unreturnable deposit on hand-blown glass bud vases that my mother made fun of and I pretended not to hear. I wrote my wedding speech in a Google Doc titled Owner's Manual for a Heart, because that's what it felt like, notes for the maintenance of something awkward and miraculous. I wrote it the way you write a letter you plan to keep in a drawer, specific, bright, a little embarrassing in the places you can't help but be honest. 3 weeks before the date, I found out Caleb had been trial running married life with someone from work, someone who wore her lanyard like a personality and said things like "ping me" on purpose. I'll spare you the wreckage montage and move to the part where the speech got saved and never delivered, the bud vases got boxed and donated, and my spine learned a new word, forward. I did what I coach my clients to do when a story collapses. I kept structure. I made lists. I went back to work and helped other people say things they'd remember loving themselves for. I hosted Write Your Toast workshops on Sunday afternoons where accountants and poets alike cried into legal pads while I pressed a box of Kleenex across the table like a sacrament. I did not read Owner's Manual for a Heart. I did not reopen the document. I did revoke Caleb's access to our shared Google Drive like I was prying his fingers off my front door. 2 years later, I heard he was engaged. It arrived via the exact vehicle you're imagining, a friend of a friend's Instagram story of a ring shot, her nails lacquered into blood moons, the caption "Forever my person" with a white heart and the timestamp of my own healing catching its breath. Her name was Brie. She had a voice like a straw in a milkshake and a face that made filters redundant. I rolled my eyes, then my shoulders, then the yoga mat that had taught me to put things down without apologizing. I wasn't invited to the wedding, obviously. I knew the date because the internet told me. I would have lived the whole thing at a healthy distance if not for 3 texts that arrived in the space of a single inhale while I was teaching a stuttering father of the bride how to pause on purpose. First text, a link to a live stream. Second text, you need to see this. Third text from my oldest friend Layla, who never dramatizes unless there's a drum to beat. Sarah, she's reading your speech. I didn't click the link. My body clicked it. There I was in my kitchen holding a spatula like a question mark, streaming a hotel ballroom where chandeliers trembled like they knew something. Bree stood at a mic, all glossy and bridal, with a piece of paper held like a fragile baby bird. I wrote something, she said, and the room applauded obediently. She smiled. She began. This is an owner's manual for a heart. I dropped the spatula. Even from my couch, I recognized the cadence, the first paragraph mapped into my bones. Rule 1, she read, do not panic when it beats in odd rhythms. That's what it does when it sees the evening light in your hair, or the glue on your palms after assembling IKEA furniture without bloodshed. I had written that the night Caleb and I put together a bookcase and he'd insisted he didn't need instructions. I'd taken the manual, drawn a heart on the cover and said, "This is for later." I watched Bree smile in a place I had created and felt a sensation I can only describe as vertigo with a side of nausea. She kept going. Rule 2, never confuse quiet with absence. Love is loudest when it's doing the dishes, when it remembers your coffee order, when it knows that when you say "I'm fine" you mean "ask me twice." I made that up the night my grandmother died and Caleb brought me coffee, wrong but present, and sat on the edge of our bed without touching me until I crawled into his lap. Bree paused for effect. People dabbed at their faces. I paced my apartment, my brain firing off question marks like fireworks. How? 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 I kept watching because a person will slow down for a car wreck even when they hate themselves for it. Rule 3, Bree read, put a piece of tape on the bottom of the cereal box that says Wednesday 2 a.m. so when you're both trying not to bring something up, you can eat dry Cheerios and be honest in the kind of silence that saves you. The room laughed. The DJ off-camera said, "Oh." A cheer went up. My stomach dropped through the floor. I had sent the draft of my speech to exactly 3 people when I'd been writing it, Layla, my sister Ada, and Caleb's sister Tessa, who had begged, "Let me see, I want to know when to cry and when to hand you tissues." Tessa, with her bangles and her bright mouth, had held my dress while I peed at the one fitting I made it to. After the breakup, we'd done the scrupulous thing, unfollowed each other, sent the goodbye text that says you're still family to me, and knew it was a lie the way a lullaby is a lie, kind and necessary. She had the draft. Of course she had the draft. I should have turned the livestream off. I didn't. I watched Bree continue, line after line, my words with her breath in them, my metaphors wearing her perfume. She even read the joke about my grandmother's cinnamon rolls burning at 375 like our first attempt at a relationship, and for a dumb second I thought maybe it's a coincidence, maybe she too had a grandmother who baked, except Bree is gluten-free and had posted a whole reel about her wheat-free wedding with a caption warning guests not to bring personal bread. My grandmother's cinnamon rolls did not belong in a wheat-free wedding. When she got to the part where I wrote that love is that tiny pause on the phone when they notice your voice is thinner than usual, Jonah, my present boyfriend, a quiet man who laughs with his shoulders, called me from the other room and said, "Hey," in that tone because he heard the thinness. "It's mine," I croaked. "She's reading mine." He came to the couch, saw the screen, and said the exact right thing, nothing. He put his hand on my knee and waited. I closed the laptop. I stared straight ahead like the room could give me back oxygen. I surprised myself by not crying. Instead, I got up, went to my desk, opened my old professional email account, the one I'd kept alive for nightmare clients to send their midnight edits, and searched owner's manual. There it was, the original draft, the sharing settings, the little history of who had accessed it. Tessa's name glowed like a neon sign in my memory. The last view 2 summers ago came from an IP I didn't recognize. I messaged Layla and Ada. "Did you ever share it?" Both wrote back immediately. No, my chest did a small neat ache. I texted Tessa because I wanted the courtesy of removing doubt. "Hey," I wrote and watched the dots appear and disappear. Random question. Did you still have access to my old speech? She called. We hadn't spoken since the box of bud vases. "Sir," she said, breathless, ballroom noise in the background. "Oh my God, I was going to text you. I'm so sorry. I didn't think she would use it all. I only showed her the beginning because she said she was nervous and wanted examples, and I forgot it had such personal stuff, and then she copied like a lot, and I tried to stop her, but you know, Bree." "That was my speech," I said. "My life." "I know," she said, and I could hear a click in her voice, like a person discovering the floor isn't where they left it. "I'm sorry." I thought it would help. "I thought your words were," she flailed, "universal." "Universal doesn't mean free," I said. "Also, cinnamon rolls are not universal at a gluten-free wedding." She laughed, a small, guilty burst, then said, "I'll fix it. I'll talk to her." "You can't say a speech," I said, gently because the knife didn't need help. "You can only apologize and stop hitting copy." She cried, apologized, blamed herself 3 times, blamed Bree twice, blamed the champagne once, then the DJ, then her own soft heart that wants everyone to feel brave at microphones. I believed her in the way you believe a person who came to a fire with a candle and is shocked that the house caught faster. We hung up. I stood in my kitchen with the kind of adrenaline you get from slamming on your brakes on the highway and not crashing. Then I went to work because Tuesday afternoons aren't sentimental about your bruises. By the time I finished my coaching session with the stuttering father who nailed his pause, by the way, in case you need to believe in redemption of other kinds, my phone was a carnival. Screenshots of Bree's words next to my old draft. A text from a mutual who said someone had posted the comparison on Reddit, which is what the devil invented so that people could have better fonts for pitchforks. A voicemail from my mother that began with "I told you that man was a smudge" and somehow turned into a casserole recipe. A DM from a stranger who wrote, "As a writer, I'm furious on your behalf." I shut it all down. I made soup. I watched a bad movie where the wrong people kissed for too long. I went to bed wired and woke up furious and ate cereal over the sink like a soldier. Here's the thing no one tells you about being plagiarized. It's not only the theft. It's the uncanny. Hearing your voice detached from your mouth is a horror I don't recommend to living mammals. I found myself whispering my own sentences in the shower, tapping their edges like you might tap a glass to see if it's chipped. The words themselves were fine. The history around them had been rearranged without asking me. That was the bruise. I did the two things my work has taught me to do when a client's words are misused. I documented and I wrote. The first was mechanical. I took screenshots. I saved the live stream. I wrote the timeline on a yellow legal pad like a detective with an honest coffee addiction. I emailed Tessa for a written account of what she'd done and what she'd shown and when, and to her credit she sent back something detailed and mortified that included the sentence, "I am deeply ashamed of my decision to share without permission." I forwarded it to a lawyer friend who knows how to make misused words pay rent. The second thing, the writing, was not strategic. It was an exhale I could shape. I sat down and wrote an essay not for the internet, not at first, but for the part of my body that flinches when I think of a microphone. I called it Owner's Manual for Words, because if I don't title my pain, it gets on busy with naming me. I wrote, "A speech is not a dress you can borrow and pin. A speech is a parent, no, that's too cheesy. A speech is a skeleton key. It opens because it is made of the person who forged it. You can copy a key. It will turn. But it will not remember the door." I read it aloud to Jonah at the kitchen table. He listened, head cocked, the way he does when he's tracking a siren on a street he can't see. When I finished, he put his hand over mine and said, "What do you want to do with it?" I said, "I don't know," which was true and also a lie because there is a stubborn part of me, call her my spine, that wanted to post it and tag Bree and the venue and the DJ and the devil and write a caption that said simply no. But my job isn't to feed bonfires. It's to teach people how to hold flame without turning the room to ash. Bree reached out on day 2. She texted from a number I didn't recognize. "Hey Sarah, this is Bree. Can we talk? I think things got out of hand." I read it out loud to the lamp, which said nothing but glowed like a friend. "We met in a public place, my rules, my turf, the cafe where I take clients to practice toasts between potted plants." She arrived in a cream sweater and regret. Up close, she looked exactly like the internet and nothing like the word she'd borrowed. She started with "I'm sorry if," which is the script for non-apology, and I put my palm up without touching her. "Try again," I said. She swallowed. "I'm sorry," she said and stopped and started again better. "I stole your speech." I was anxious. I wanted to sound good. Tessa showed me the first part and it felt like trying on a dress that fit, and then I didn't know how to stop. I thought it was flattering? I don't know. It was stupid. "I am deeply sorry." "You're not sorry you did it," I said. "You're sorry I heard you." "I'm sorry I did it and that you heard me," she said to her credit, and her voice cracked on, and which made my heart do a tiny unwanted thing. "Why mine?" I asked, not because I wanted to flatter myself, but because I needed the origin story if I was going to file it somewhere that wasn't my throat. "Because it was perfect," she said, and the word made my shoulders go up the way they do when a stranger compliments your dress while stepping on it. "And because," she glanced down, "Caleb told me you write stuff like that for a living, and it felt like I was borrowing from a professional." Professionals get paid. Professionals are asked. Professionals sign contracts. Professionals do not wake up to their work in other people's mouths. I said none of that or all of it, depending on your scorecard. What I said was, "You owe me an apology in writing. You owe me a written acknowledgement that what you read contained my original language without permission. You owe a note to your guests saying your speech included passages by the original author, used without consent, and that you understand why that's wrong. You owe Tessa a hug for trying to put toothpaste back in a tube. And you owe my lawyer a reply to the letter she's about to send you. I'll do it, she said quickly, like a person agreeing not to touch fire again. Can you not post about me, she added small. I mean, if you must, you must. But I haven't posted about you, I said. I wrote for myself. If I post, it won't be about you. It'll be about what we owe the people whose words we wear. She nodded, relief and something like respect doing complicated math in her face. I'm sorry, she said again, and this time it wasn't sticky. I believed her in the way you believe a person who found the boundary by face-planting into it. I also didn't forgive her. Not then. Not there. Forgiveness is a room with more chairs than I had energy to set out. The letters arrived. Bree's note to me was clear and mortified, to her guests shorter but honest. At our wedding, my speech included lines written by another person without permission. I'm sorry. That was wrong. My lawyer sent a tidy agreement requiring her to never use or publish my words again, digitally or otherwise, and to remove any existing videos that included them. She signed. Tessa sent flowers that smelled like a garden with a conscience. Caleb, of course, texted a naked apology that consisted entirely of wow and didn't know and hope you're well, which I ignored with the silence of a woman who has Google Drive receipts and no interest in tutoring the past. A week later, a client, a woman getting married on a cliff that doesn't care about your dress, asked me if I had any templates she could pull from. I smiled at my coffee and said, nope, but I'll teach you how to write the only one that would ever fit. She looked nervous. I handed her a pen. We sat there while she wrote the first sentence of her speech, ugly and true. When I met you, I thought, oh no, this is going to be expensive, and then we kept going. It took an hour. It tasted like oranges. It was hers. Later, she sent me a photo of the paper folded into her palm like a promise. That was the day I decided to publish my essay. I called it Theft at the Microphone. I posted it on my website, not on the platforms that digest people for sport. I didn't name anyone. I wrote about how stealing words is not a victimless scoop but a bruise you can't point to. I wrote about the way a speech holds fingerprints. I wrote about love and laziness and the temptation to use what already sounds good when you are terrified of being yourself in front of your entire history. I wrote about how to write your own thing anyway. It traveled like cooked sugar, slow at first and then quick to crackle. I got emails from brides who had borrowed a lot and had returned it. From best men who had used ChatGPT and felt like they were cheating on their own brains. From a rabbi who said he keeps a box of index cards for mourners who cannot speak and needs me to know that making space for silence is holy. Bree sent me a final message. I read your essay. It hurt. It helped. I'm going to write a speech for my sister next month and it will be mine, and it will probably be bad and I will be proud of it. I wrote back, I hope it's bad and honest and makes people laugh at the wrong time. I meant it. I don't want her to become me. I want her to become someone who can stand at a microphone without borrowing a spine. As for Caleb, I saw him once months later at the farmer's market, the place where everyone pretends Kale is a personality. He raised a hand. I nodded. He said, you look good. I said, my words do too. He laughed in that way he always laughed when he didn't get the joke and left before I could teach him. I bought peaches I didn't need and used them all because I am trying to live like bruise-colored fruit deserves to be eaten before it turns. I'm Sarah, 36, a woman who lives by words and learned the hard way that they are as intimate as anything we take off and put on. I still write owner's manual for a heart in my notebook sometimes, but now the rules are different. I added one, right at the top. If you are tempted to use someone else's language because yours feels small, tell the truth about that in your own small language. Then add detail until it becomes a room big enough to stand in. I added another at the bottom, circled twice. When you're almost brave enough, read it out loud to the person who loves you and let them put their hand on your knee during the parts that shake. On Saturday nights, I go to weddings I had nothing to do with. It's a terrible habit and a perk of being a speechwriter in a city where you can wander into a hotel bar without being noticed. I sit at the back near the exits and I listen for the moment someone, uncle, friend, bride, you, says something that only they could have said. Sometimes it's not clever. Sometimes it's messy. It always hits like a bell. I lift my glass, invisible, and I toast the courage it takes to put your own breath behind your own words, which is all a speech is and all a life asks. And when I walk home, I repeat the new rule, the one that fixes the ache better than anything legal. I am the first and only person who gets to be me at the microphone.